authorities have over every people. Lo, it is the tale of their triumphs. Lo, it is the voice of their will to power. It is one but they think hard. What is indispensable and hard, they call good. And what relieveth in the direst of distress, the unique and hardest of all, they extol as holy. Whatever maketh them rule and conquer and shine, to the dismay and envy of their neighbors, they regard as the high and foremost thing, the test and the meaning of all else. Verily, my brother, if thou knewest what a people is made, its land, its skin, and its neighbor, then wouldst thou divine the law of its surroundings, and why the climbeth up that ladder to its height. Always shalt thou be the foremost and prominent above others. No one shall thy jealous soul love, except a friend. That made the soul of a Greek thrill, thereby not he is worthy to greatness. To speak truth, and be skillful with bow and arrow, so seemed it alike pleasing and hard to the people. Just alike pleasing and hard to me, to honor father and mother, and from the wound of the soul to do their will. This table of surmounting on other people over them, and became powerful and permanent thereby. To have fidelity, and for the sake of fidelity, to risk honor and blood, even in evil and dangerous courses. Judging itself so, another people mastered itself, and thus mastering itself, became pregnant and heavy with great hopes. Verily, men have given unto themselves all their good and bad. Verily, they took it not, they found it not, it came not unto them as a voice from heaven. Values did man only assign to things in order to maintain himself. He created only the insignificance of things, a human significance. Therefore calleth he himself man, that is, the valuator. Valuing is creating. Hear it, ye creating ones. Valuation itself is the treasure and jewel of the valued things. Through valuation only is their value, and without valuation the nut of existence would be hollow. Hear it, ye creating ones. Change of values, that is, change of the creating ones. Always doth he destroy who hath to be a creator. Creating ones were first of all peoples, and only in late times individuals. Finally, the individual himself is still the latest creation. Peoples once hung over them tables of the good. Love, which would rule, and love, which would obey, created for themselves such tables. Older is the pleasure in the herd than the pleasure in the ego, and as long as the good conscience is for the herd, the bad conscience only saith ego. Verily, the crafty ego, the loveless one, that seeketh its advantage in the advantage of many, it is not the origin of the herd, but its ruin. Loving ones, was it always, and creating ones, that created good and bad. Fire of love gloweth in the names of all the virtues, and fire of wrath. Many lands saw Zarathustra, and many peoples. No greater power did Zarathustra find on earth than the creations of the loving ones. Good and bad are they called. Verily, a prodigy is this power of praising and blaming. Tell me, ye brethren, who will master it for me? Who will put a fetter upon the 1,000 necks of this animal? 1,000 goals have there been hitherto, for 1,000 peoples have there been. Only the fetter for the 1,000 necks is still lacking. There is lacking the one goal. As yet, humanity hath not a goal. But pray tell me, my brethren, if the goal of humanity be still lacking, is there not also still lacking humanity itself? Thus spake Zarathustra. 16. Neighbor love. Ye crowd around your neighbor, and have fine words for it. But I say unto you, your neighbor love is your bad love of yourselves. Ye flee unto your neighbor from yourselves, and would fain make a virtue thereof. But I fathom your unselfishness. The thou is older than the I. The thou hath been consecrated, but not yet the I. So man presseth nigh unto his neighbor. Do I advise you to neighbor love? Rather, do I advise you to neighbor flight and to furthest love? Higher than love to your neighbor is love to the furthest and future ones. Higher still than love to men is love to things and phantoms. The phantom that runneth on before thee, my brother, is fairer than thou. Why dost thou not give unto it thy flesh and thy bones? But thou fearest and runnest unto thy neighbor. Ye cannot endure it with yourselves, and do not love yourselves sufficiently. So ye seek to mislead your neighbor into love, and would fain gild yourselves with his error. Would that ye could not endure it with any kind of near ones, or their neighbors. Then would ye have to create your friend and his overflowing heart out of yourselves. Ye call in a witness when ye want to speak well of yourselves.
All right,
And
I'm
when
just
ye
finished.
let him to think well of you, ye also think well of yourselves.
I had just set
Not
up the
only
webcam
doth
for
he
the
lie,
dogs just in
who
case.
speaketh contrary to his knowledge, but more so
Okay, babe.
he who speaketh contrary to his ignorance. And thus speak ye of yourselves in your intercourse, and belie your neighbor with yourselves. Thus saith the fool, association with men spoileth the character, especially when one hath none. The one goeth to his neighbor because he seeketh himself, and the other because he would fain lose himself. Your bad love to yourselves maketh solitude a prison to you. The furthest ones are they who pay for your love to the near ones, and when there are but 5 of you together, a 6th must always die. I love not your festivals either. Too many actors found I there, and even the spectators often behaved like actors. Not the neighbor do I teach you, but the friend. Let the friend be the festival of the earth to you, and a foretaste of the Superman. I teach you the friend and his overflowing heart, but one must not ought to be a sponge, if one would be loved by overflowing hearts. I teach you the friend in whom the world standeth complete, a capsule of the good, the creating friend, who hath always a complete world to bestow. And as the world unrolled itself for him, so rolleth it together against him in rings. As the growth of good through evil, as the growth of purpose out of chance. Let the future and the furthest be the motive of thy today. In thy friend shalt thou love the Superman as thy motive. My brethren, I advise you not to neighbor love. I advise you to furthest love. Thus spake Zarathustra. 17. The way of the creating one. Wouldst thou go into isolation, my brother? Wouldst thou seek the way into thyself? Tarry yet a little and hearken unto me.
Hey, baby.
He who seeketh may easily get lost himself. All isolation is wrong,
Quick.
so say the herd.
Yep.
And long couldst thou belong to the herd. The voice of the herd will still echo in thee. And when thou sayest, I have no longer a conscience in common with you, then will it be a
Good
grief
boy.
and a pain. Lo, that pain itself did the same conscience produce.
Okay, good boy.
The last gleam of that conscience still bloweth on thine affliction. But thou wouldst go the way of thine affliction, which is the way unto thyself. Then show me thine authority and thy strength to do so. Art thou a new strength and a new authority, a first motion, a self-rolling wheel? Canst thou also compel stars to revolve around thee? Alas, there is so much lusting for loftiness. There are so many convulsions of the ambitions. Show me that thou art not a lusting and ambitious one. Alas, there are so many great thoughts that do nothing more than the bellows. They inflate and make emptier than ever. Free dost thou call thyself. Thy ruling thought would I hear of, and not that thou hast escaped from a yoke. Art thou one entitled to escape from a yoke? Many a one hath cast away his final worth when he hath cast away
All right,
his
you guys can lay down.
free from what? author of that letter to Zarathustra. Clearly, brother, shall thine eyes show unto thee. Breathe.
Yeah.
Unto thyself thy bad and thy good, and sanctify thee as a rule of thee. Canst thou be judge for thyself and avenger of thy law? Terrible is the law with the judge and avenger of one's own law. Thus is
That's what they done.
into the desert space, into the icy breath of aloneness.
What they done?
Suppose thou still on the multitude, thou
Okay, come on, let's go. Up.
as thou still thy courage unabated, and thy hopes.
Come on, up.
But one day will the solitude weary thee.
All right, we'll be right back.
Thy cry yield, and thy courage quail. Thou wilt one day cry, I am alone. One day wilt thou see no longer thy loftiness, and see too closely thy lowliness. Thy sublimity itself will frighten thee as a phantom. Thou wilt one day cry, all is false. There are feelings which seek to slay the lonesome one. If they do not succeed, then must they themselves die. But art thou capable of it, to be a murderer? Hast thou ever known, my brother, the word disdain, and the anguish of thy justice in being just to those that disdain thee? Thou forcest many to think differently about thee. That charge they heavily into thine account. Thou camest nigh unto them, yet wentest past, for that they never forgive thee. Thou goest beyond them, but the higher thou risest, the smaller doth the eye of envy see thee. Most of all, however, is the flying one hated. How could ye be just unto me? Must thou say, I choose your injustice as my allotted portion? Injustice and filth cast they at the lonesome one. But, my brother, if thou wouldst be a star, thou must shine for them, nonetheless, on that account, and be on thy guard against the good and just. They would fain crucify those who devise their own virtue. They hate the lonesome ones. Be on thy guard also against holy simplicity. All is unholy to it that is not simple. They, likewise, would play with the fire of the faggot and stake. And be on thy guard also against the assault of thy love. Too readily the recluse reaches to any to anyone that does not give thy hand. Thy palm, that with thy palm also hath laws. But the worst enemy thou canst meet, wilt thou thyself always be. Thou waylayest thyself in caverns and forests. Thou lonesome one, thou goest the way to thyself, and past thyself, and thy seven devils leadeth thy way. A heretic wilt thou be to thyself, and a wizard, and a soothsayer, and a fool, and a doubter, and a reprobate, and a villain. Ready must thou be to burn thyself in thy own flame. How couldst thou become dew if thou have not first become ashes? Thou lonesome one, thou goest the way of the creating one. A god wilt thou create for thyself out of thy seven devils. Thou lonesome one, thou goest the way of the loving one. Thou lovest thyself, and on that account despisest thou thyself, as only the loving ones despise. To create, desireth the loving one, because he despiseth. What knoweth he of love who hath not been obliged to despise just what he loved? With thy love, go into thine isolation, my brother, and with thy creating, and late only will justice live after thee. With my tears, go into thine isolation, my brother. I love him who seeketh to create beyond himself, and thus succumbeth. Thus spake Zarathustra. 18. Old and young women. Why stealest thou along so furtively in the twilight, Zarathustra? And what hidest thou so carefully under thy mantle? Is it a treasure that hath been given thee, or a child that hath been born thee? Or goest thou thyself on a thief's errand, thou friend of the evil? Verily, my brother, said Zarathustra, it is a treasure that hath been given me. It is a little truth which I carry. But it is naughty also unto me of woman, said she, I am old enough to forget it presently. And I obliged the old woman, and spake thus unto her, Everything in woman is a riddle, and everything in woman hath one solution. It is called pregnancy. Man is for woman a means. The purpose is always the child. But what is woman for man? Two different things wanted the true man, danger and diversion. Therefore wanteth he woman as the most dangerous plaything. Man shall be trained for war, and woman for the reaction of the warrior. All else is folly. Two sweet fruits, these the warrior liketh not. Therefore liketh he woman. Bitter is even the sweetest woman. Better than man doth woman understand children, but man is more childish than woman. In the true man there is a child hidden, it wanteth to play. Up then, ye women, and discover the child in man. A plaything let woman be, pure and fine like the precious stone, illumined with the virtues of a world not yet come. Let the beam of a star shine in your love. Let your hope say, May I bear the Superman. In your love let there be valor. With your love shall ye assail him who inspireth you with fear. In your love be your honor. Little doth woman understand otherwise about honor. But let this be your honor, always to love more than ye are loved, and never be the second. Let man fear woman when she loveth, then maketh she every sacrifice, and everything else she regardeth as worthless. Let man fear woman when she hateth man in his innermost soul. Woman, however, is mean. Whom hateth woman most? Thus spake the iron and lodestone. I hate thee most, because thou attractest but art too weak to draw unto thee. The happiness of man is, I will. The happiness of woman is, he will. Lo, now hath the world become perfect. Thus thinketh every woman when she obeyeth with all her love. Obey must the woman, and find a depth for her surface. Surface is woman's soul, a mobile, stormy film on shallow water. Man's soul, however, is deep. Its current gusheth in subterranean caverns. Woman surmiseth its force, but comprehendeth it not. Then answered me the old woman, Many fine things hath Zarathustra said, especially for those who are young enough for them. Strange, Zarathustra knoweth little about woman, and yet he is right about them. Doth this happen because with women nothing is impossible? And now accept a little truth by way of thanks. I am old enough for it. Swaddle it up and hold its mouth, otherwise it will scream too loudly the little truth. Give me, woman, thy little truth, said I, and thus spake the old woman. Thou goest to women, do not forget thy whip. Thus spake Zarathustra. 19. The Bite of the Adder. One day had Zarathustra fallen asleep under a fig tree, owing to the heat, with his arm over his face, and there came an adder and bit him in the neck, so that Zarathustra screamed with pain. When he had taken his arm from his face, he looked at the serpent, and then did it recognize the eyes of Zarathustra, wriggled awkwardly, and tried to get away. Not at all, said Zarathustra, as yet hast thou not received my thanks. Thou hast awakened me in time. My journey is yet long. Thy journey is short, said the adder sadly. My poison is fatal. Zarathustra smiled. When did ever a dragon die of a serpent's poison? Said he. But take thy poison back. Thou art not rich enough to present it to me. Then fell the adder again on his neck and licked his wound. When Zarathustra once told this to his disciples, they asked him, And what, O Zarathustra, is the moral of thy story? And Zarathustra answered him thus, The destroyer of morality, the good and just call me. My story is immoral. not good for evil, for that would abash him, but prove that he hath done something good to you, and rather be angry than abash anyone. And when ye are cursed, it pleaseth me not that ye should then desire to bless, rather curse a little also, and should a great injustice befall you, then do quickly 5 small ones besides. Hideous to behold is he on whom injustice presseth alone. Did ye ever know this? Shared in justice is half justice, and he who can bear it shall take the injustice upon himself. A small revenge is humaner than no revenge at all, and if the punishment be not also a right and an honor to the transgressor, I do not like your punishing. Nobler is it to own oneself in the wrong than to establish one's right, especially if one be in the right. Only one must be rich enough to do so. I do not like your cold justice. Out of the eye of your judges there always glanceth the executioner and his cold steel. Tell me, where we find justice, which is love with seeing eyes? Devise me then the love which not only beareth all punishment, but also all guilt. Devise me then the justice which acquitteth everyone except the judge. And would ye hear this likewise? To him who seeketh to be just from the heart, even the lie becometh philanthropy. But how could I be just from the heart? How can I give everyone his own? Let this be enough for me. I give unto everyone mine own. Finally, my brethren, guard against doing wrong to any anchorite. How could an anchorite forget? How could he requite? Like a deep well is an anchorite. Easy is it to throw in a stone. If it should sink to the bottom, however, tell me, who will bring it out again? Guard against injuring the anchorite. If ye have done so, however, well then, kill him. This question in my soul, but I may know its depth. Thou art young, thou desirest a child and marriage. But I ask thee, art thou a man entitled to desire a child? Art thou the victorious one, the sole conqueror, the ruler of thy passions, the master of thy virtues? Thus do I ask thee, or doth the animal spirit thy wish and necessity, or isolation, or discord in thee? I would have thy victory and freedom all for a child. Living monuments shalt thou build to thy victory and emancipation. Beyond thyself shalt thou build, but first of all must thou be built thyself, rectangular in body and soul. Not only onward shalt thou propagate thyself, but upward. For that purpose may the garden of marriage help thee. A higher body shalt thou create, a first movement, a spontaneously rolling wheel, a creating one shalt thou create. Marriage. So call I the will of the twain to create the one that is more than those who created it. The reverence for one another, as those exercising such a will, call I marriage. Let this be the significance and the truth of thy marriage. But that which the many too many call marriage, those superfluous ones, what shall I call it? The poverty of soul in the twain. The filth of soul in the twain. The pitiable self-complacency in the twain. Marriage, they call it all. And they say their marriages are made in heaven. Well, I do not like it, that heaven of the superfluous. No, I do not like them, those animals tangled in the heavenly toils. Far from me also be the God who limpeth thither to bless what he hath not matched. Laugh not at such marriages. What child hath not had reason to weep over its parents? Worthy did this man seem to look for the meaning of the earth, but when I saw his wife, the earth seemed to me a home for madcaps. Yea, I would that the earth shook with convulsions when a saint and a goose mate with one another. This one went forth in quest of truth as a hero, and at last got for himself a small decked-up lie. His marriage he calleth it. The one was reserved in intercourse, and chose choicely, but one time he spoilt his company for all time. His marriage he calleth it. Another sought a handmaid with the virtues of an angel, but all at once he became the handmaid of a woman, and now would he need also to become an angel. Careful have I found all buyers, and all of them have astute eyes, but even the astutest of them buyeth his wife in a sack. Many short follies, that is called love by you, and your marriage putteth an end to many short follies, with one long stupidity. Your love to woman, and woman's love to man. Ah, would that it were sympathy for suffering and veiled deities, but generally two animals alight on one another. But even your best love is only an enraptured smile, and a painful ardor. It is a torch to light you to loftier paths. Beyond yourselves shall ye love some day. Then learn first of all to love, and on that account ye had to drink the bitter cup of your love. Bitterness is in the cup of even the best love. Thus doth it cause longing for the Superman. Thus doth it cause thirst in thee, the creating one. Thirst in the creating one, arrow and longing for the Superman. Tell me, my brother, is this thy will to marriage? Holy call I such a will, and such a marriage. Thus spake Zarathustra. 21. Voluntary death. Many die too late, and some die too early. Yet strange soundeth the precept, die at the right time. Die at the right time, so teacheth Zarathustra. To be sure, he who never liveth at the right time, how did he ever die at the right time? Would that he might never be born. Thus do I advise the superfluous ones, but even the superfluous ones make much ado about their death, and even the hollowest nut wanteth to be cracked. Every one regardeth dying as a great matter, but as yet death is not a festival. Not yet have people learned to inaugurate the finest festivals. The consummating death I show unto you, which becometh a stimulus and promise to the living. This death dieth the consummating one triumphantly, surrounded by hoping and promising ones. Thus should one learn to die, and there should be no festival at which such a dying one doth not consecrate the oaths of the living. Thus to die is best. The next best, however, is to die in battle, and sacrifice a great soul. But to the fighter equally hateful as to the victor is your grinning death which stealeth nigh like a thief, and yet cometh as master. My death praise I unto you, the voluntary death which cometh unto me because I want it. And when shall I want it? He that hath a goal and an heir wanteth death at the right time for the goal and the heir, and out of reverence for the goal and the heir, he will hang up no more withered wreaths in the sanctuary of life. Verily, not the rope makers will I resemble. They lengthen out their cord, and thereby go ever backward. Many a one also waxeth too old for his truths and triumphs. A toothless mouth hath no longer the right to every truth, and whoever wanteth to have fame must take leave of honor betimes, and practice the difficult art of going at the right time. One must discontinue being feasted upon when one tasteth the best that is known by those who want to be long loved. Sour apples are there, no doubt, whose lot is to wait until the last day of autumn, and at the same time they become ripe, yellow, and shriveled. In some ageth the heart first, and in others the spirit, and some are hoary in youth, but the late young keep long young. To many men life is a failure. A poison worm gnaweth at their heart. Then let them see to it that their dying is all the more a success. Many never become sweet. They rot even in the summer. It is cowardice that holdeth them fast to their branches. Far too many live, and far too long hang they on their branches. Would that a storm came and shook all this rottenness and worm-eatenness from the tree, preachers of speedy death. Those would be the appropriate storms and agitators of the trees of life. But I hear only slow death preached, and patience with all that is earthly. Ah, ye preach patience with what is earthly. This earthly is that hath too much patience with you, ye blasphemers. Verily, too early died that Hebrew whom the preachers of slow death honor, and to many hath it proved a calamity that he died too early. As yet had he known only tears and the melancholy of the Hebrews, together with the hatred of the good and just. The Hebrew Jesus, then, was he seized with the longing for death. Had he but remained in the wilderness, and far from the good and just, then perhaps he would have learned to live and love the earth, and laughter also. Believe it, my brethren, he died too early. He himself would have disavowed his doctrine had he attained to my age. Noble enough was he to disavow, but he was still immature. Immaturely loveth the youth, and immaturely also hateth he man and earth. Confined and awkward are still his soul and the wings of his spirit. But in man there is more of the child than in the youth, and less of melancholy. Better understandeth he about life and death, free for death and free in death. A holy naysayer, when there is no longer time for yea. Thus understandeth he about death and life, that your dying may not be a reproach to man and the earth. My friends, that do I solicit from the honey of your soul. In your dying shall your spirit and your virtue still shine like an evening afterglow around the earth. Otherwise your dying hath been unsatisfactory. Thus will I die myself, that ye friends may love the earth more for my sake. The earth will I again become, and have rest in her that bore me. Verily, a goal had Zarathustra. He threw his ball. Now be ye friends, the heirs of my goal. To you I throw the golden ball. Best of all, do I see you, my friends, throw the golden ball. And so tarry I still a little while on the earth. Pardon me for it. Thus spake Zarathustra. 22. The bestowing virtue. 1. When Zarathustra had taken leave of the town to which his heart was attached, the name of which is the Pied Cow, there followed him many people who called themselves disciples, and kept him company. Thus they came to a crossroads. Then Zarathustra told them that he now wanted to go alone, for he was fond of going alone. His disciples, however, presented him at his departure with a staff, on the golden handle of which a serpent twined around the sun. Zarathustra rejoiced on account of the staff, and supported himself thereon. Then spake he thus to his disciples: Tell me, pray, how came gold to the highest value? Because it is uncommon and unprofiting, and beaming, and soft in luster, it always bestoweth itself. Only as image of the highest virtue came gold to the highest value. Gold-like beameth the glance of the bestower. Gold luster maketh peace between moon and sun. Uncommon is the highest virtue, and unprofiting, beaming is it, and soft of luster, a bestowing virtue is the highest virtue. Verily, I divine you well, my disciples. Ye strive like me for the bestowing virtue. What should ye have in common with cats and wolves? It is your thirst to become sacrifices and gifts yourselves, and therefore have ye the thirst to accumulate all riches in your soul. Insatiably striveth your soul for treasures and jewels, because your virtue is insatiable in desiring to bestow. Ye constrain all things to flow towards you and into you, so that they shall flow back again out of your fountain as the gifts of your love. Verily, an appropriator of all values must such bestowing love become. But healthy and holy call I this selfishness. Another selfishness is there, an all too poor and hungry kind, which would always steal, the selfishness of the sick, the sickly selfishness. With the eye of the thief it looketh upon all that is lustrous. With the craving of hunger it measureth him who hath abundance. and ever doth it prowl round the tables of bestowers. Sickness speaketh in such a way. This selfishness. Tell me, my brother, what do we think bad? Worst of all, is it not degeneration? And we always suspect degeneration when the bestowing soul is lacking. Upward goeth our course from generant unto supergenerant. But a horror to us is the degenerating sense, which saith, all for myself. Upward soareth our sense. Thus it is a simile of our body, a simile of an elevation. Such similes of elevation are the names of the virtues. Thus goeth the body through history, a becomer and fighter. And the spirit, what is it to the body? Its fights and victories herald, its companion and echo. Similes are all names of good and evil. They do not speak out, they only hint. A fool who seeketh knowledge from them. Give heed, my brethren, to every hour when your spirit would speak in similes. There is the origin of your virtue. Elevated then is your body, and raised up with its delight. Enraptureth it, the spirit, so that it becometh creator and valuer, and lover, and everything's benefactor. When your heart overfloweth broad and full like the river, a blessing and a danger to the lowlanders, there is the origin of your virtue. When ye are exalted above praise and blame, and your will would command all things, as a loving one's will, there is the origin of your virtue. When ye despise pleasant things, and the effeminate couch, and cannot couch far enough from the effeminate, there is the origin of your virtue. When ye are rulers of one will, and when that change of every need is needful to you, there is the origin of your virtue. Verily, a new good and evil is it. Verily, a new deep murmuring, and the voice of a new fountain. Power is it, this new virtue. A ruling thought is it, and around it a subtle soul, a golden sun, with the serpent of knowledge around it. 2. Here paused Zarathustra a while, and looked lovingly on his disciples. Then he continued to speak thus, and his voice had changed. Remain true to the earth, my brethren, with the power of your virtue. Let your bestowing love and your knowledge be devoted to be the meaning of the earth. Thus do I pray and conjure you. Let it not fly away from the earthly and beat against eternal walls with its wings. Ah, there hath always been so much flown away virtue. Lead, like me, the flown away virtue back to the earth, yea, back to the body and life, that it may give to the earth its meaning, a human meaning. 100 times hitherto hath the spirit as well as virtue flown away and blundered. Alas, in our body dwelleth still all this delusion and blundering. Body and will hath it there become. 100 times hitherto hath the spirit as well as virtue attempted and erred. Yea, an attempt hath man been. Alas, much ignorance and error hath become embodied in us. Not only the rationality of millennia, also their madness breaketh out in us. Dangerous is it to be an heir. Still fight we step by step with the giant chance, and over all mankind hath hitherto ruled nonsense, the lack of sense. Let your spirit and your virtue be devoted to the sense of the earth, my brother. Let the value of everything be determined anew by you. Therefore shall ye be fighters, therefore shall ye be creators. Intelligently doth the body purify itself, attempting with intelligence it exalteth itself. To the discerners all impulses sanctify themselves. To the exalted the soul becometh joyful. Physician, heal thyself, then wilt thou also heal thy patient. Let it be his best cure to see with his eyes him who maketh himself whole. 1,000 paths are there which have never yet been trodden, 1,000 celebrities and hidden islands of life. Unexhausted and undiscovered is still man and man's world. Awake and hearken, ye lonesome ones. The future comes with stealthy pinions, and to fine ears good tidings are proclaimed. Ye lonesome ones of today, place of healing shall the earth become, and already is a new odor diffused around it, a salvation bringing odor, and a new hope. 3. When Zarathustra had spoken these words, he paused, like one who had not said his last word, and long did he balance the staff doubtfully in his hand. At last he spake thus, and his voice had changed. I now go alone, my disciples. Ye also now go away and alone. So will I have it. Verily, I advise you, depart from me, and guard yourselves against Zarathustra, and, better still, be ashamed of him. Perhaps he hath deceived you. The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends. One requireth a teacher badly if one remain merely a scholar. And why will ye not pluck at my wreath? Ye venerate me, but what if your veneration should some day collapse? Take heed, lest a statue crush you. Ye say ye believe in Zarathustra, but of what account is Zarathustra? Ye are my believers, but of what account are all believers? Ye had not yet sought yourselves, then did ye find me. So do all believers, therefore all belief is of so little account. Now do I bid you lose me and find yourselves, and only when ye have all denied me will I return unto you. Verily, with other eyes, my brethren, shall I then seek my lost ones. With another love shall I then love you, and once again shall ye have become friends unto me, and children of one hope. Then will I be with you for the third time, to celebrate the great noontide with you. And it is the great noontide, when man is in the middle of his course between animal and Superman, and celebrateth his advance to the evening as his highest hope. For it is the advance to a new morning. At such time will the downgoer bless himself, that he should be an overgoer, and the sun of his knowledge will be at noontide. Dead are all the gods. Now do we desire the Superman to live. Let this be our final will at the great noontide. Thus spake Zarathustra. The second part. And only when ye have all denied me will I return unto you. Verily, with other eyes, my brethren, shall I then seek my lost ones. With another love shall I then love you. Zarathustra. 1. The bestowing virtue. 23. The child with the mirror. After this, Zarathustra returned again into the mountains to the solitude of his cave, and withdrew himself from men, waiting like a sower who hath scattered his seed. His soul, however, became impatient and full of longing for those whom he loved, because he had still much to give them. For this is the hardest of all, to close the open hand out of love, and keep modest as a giver. Thus passed with the lonesome one months and years. His wisdom meanwhile increased, and caused him pain by its abundance. One morning, however, he awoke ere the rosy dawn, and having meditated long on his couch, at last spake thus to his heart. Why did I startle in my dream, so that I awoke? Did not a child come to me carrying a mirror? O Zarathustra, said the child unto me, look at thyself in the mirror. But when I looked into the mirror, I shrieked, and my heart throbbed. For not myself did I see therein, but a devil's grimace and derision. Verily, all too well do I understand the dream's portent and monition. My doctrine is in danger. Tares want to be called wheat. Mine enemies have grown powerful, and have disfigured the likeness of my doctrine, so that my dearest ones have to blush for the gifts that I give them. Lost are my friends. The hour hath come for me to seek my lost ones. With these words, Zarathustra started up, not, however, like a person in anguish seeking relief, but rather like a seer and a singer whom the Spirit inspireth, With amazement did his eagle and serpent gaze upon him, for a coming bliss overspread his countenance like the rosy dawn. What hath happened unto me, mine animals? Said Zarathustra. Am I not transformed? Hath not bliss come unto me like a whirlwind? Foolish is my happiness, and foolish things will it speak. It is still too young, so have patience with it. Wounded am I by my happiness. All sufferers shall be physicians unto me. To my friends can I again go down, and also to mine enemies. Zarathustra can again speak and bestow, and show his best love to his loved ones. My impatient love overfloweth in streams, down towards sunrise and sunset. Out of silent mountains and storms of affliction rusheth my soul into the valleys. Too long have I longed and looked into the distance, too long hath solitude possessed me. Thus have I unlearned to keep silence. Utterance have I become altogether, and the brawling of a brook from high rocks. Downward into the valleys will I hurl my speech, and let the stream of my love sweep into unfrequented channels. How should a stream not finally find its way to the sea? Forsooth, there is a lake in me, sequestered and self-sufficing, but the stream of my love beareth this along with it, down to the sea. New paths do I tread, a new speech cometh unto me. Tired have I become, like all creators of the old tongues. No longer will my spirit walk on worn-out souls. Too slowly runneth all speaking for me. Into thy chariot, O storm, do I leap, and even thee will I whip with my spite. Like a cry and an huzzah will I traverse wide seas, till I find the happy isles where my friends sojourn, and mine enemies amongst them. How I now love everyone unto whom I may but speak. Even mine enemies pertain to my bliss. And when I want to mount my wildest horse, then doth my spear always help me up best. It is my foot's ever-ready servant, the spear, which I hurl at mine enemies. How grateful am I to mine enemies that I may at last hurl it. Too great hath been the tension of my cloud. Twixt laughters of lightnings will I cast hail showers into the depths. Violently will my breast then heave. Violently will it blow its storm over the mountains. Thus cometh its assuagement. Verily, like the storm cometh my happiness and my freedom. But mine enemies shall think that the evil one roareth over their heads. Yea, ye also, my friends, will be alarmed by my wild wisdom, and perhaps ye will flee therefrom, along with mine enemies. Ah, that I knew how to lure you back with shepherd's flutes. Ah, that my lioness wisdom would learn to roar softly, and much have we already learned with one another. My wild wisdom became pregnant on the lonesome mountains. On the rough stones did she bear the youngest of her young. Now runneth she foolishly into the arid wilderness, and seeketh the soft sword, mine old wild wisdom. On the soft sword of your hearts, my friends, on your love would she fain couch her dearest one. Thus spake Zarathustra. 24. In the happy isles, the figs fall from the trees. They are good and sweet, and in falling, the red skins of them break. A north wind am I to ripe figs. Thus, like figs, do these doctrines fall for you, my friends. Imbibe now their juice and their sweet substance. It is autumn all around, and clear sky and afternoon. Lo, what fullness is around us, and out of the midst of superabundance it is delightful to look out upon distant seas. Once did people say, God, when they looked out upon distant seas. Now, however, have I taught you to say, Superman. God is a conjecture, but I do not wish your conjecturing to reach beyond your creating will. Could ye create a God? Then, pray you, be silent about all gods. But ye could well create the Superman. Not perhaps ye yourselves, my brethren, but into fathers and forefathers of the Superman could ye transform yourselves, and let that be your best creating. God is a conjecture, but I should like your conjecturing restricted to the conceivable. Could ye conceive a God? But let this mean will to truth unto you, that everything be transformed into the humanly conceivable, the humanly visible, the humanly sensible. Your own discernment shall ye follow out to the end, and what ye have called the world shall be but created by you. Your reason, your likeness, your will, your love shall it itself become. And verily, for your bliss, ye discerning ones, and how would ye endure life without that hope, ye discerning ones? Neither in the inconceivable could ye have been born, nor in the irrational. But that I may reveal my heart entirely unto you, my friends, if there were gods, how could I endure it to be no God? Therefore, there are no gods. Yea, I have drawn the conclusion. Now, however, doth it draw me. God is a conjecture. But who could drink all the bitterness of this conjecture without dying? Shall his faith be taken from the creating one, and from the eagle his flights into eagle heights? God is a thought. It maketh all the straight crooked, and all that standeth real. What? Time would be gone, and all the perishable would be but a lie. To think this is giddiness and vertigo to human limbs, and even vomiting to the stomach. Verily, the reeling sickness do I call it, to conjecture such a thing. Evil do I call it, and misanthropic. All that teaching about the one, and the plenum, and the unmoved, and the sufficient, and the imperishable, all the imperishable. That's but a simile, and the poets lie too much. But of time and of becoming shall the best similes speak. A praise shall they be, and a justification of all perishableness. Creating, that is the great salvation from suffering, and life's alleviation. But for the Creator to appear, suffering itself is needed, and much transformation. Yea, much bitter dying must there be in your life, ye creators. Thus are ye advocates and justifiers of all perishableness. For the Creator himself to be the newborn child, he must also be willing to be the childbearer, and endure the pangs of the childbearer. Verily, through 100 souls would die my way, and through 100 cradles and throes. Many a farewell have I taken. Know the heartbreaking last hours. What so willeth it, my creating will, my fate, or, to tell you it more candidly, just such a fate, willeth my will. All feeling suffereth in me, and is in prison, but my willing ever cometh to me as my emancipator and comforter. Willing emancipateth, that is the true doctrine of will and emancipation. So teacheth you Zarathustra. No longer willing, and no longer valuing, and no longer creating. That great debility may ever be far from me. And also in discerning do I feel only my will's procreating and evolving delight. And if there be innocence in my knowledge, it is because there is will to procreation in it. Away from God and gods did this will allure me. What would there be to create if there were gods? But to man doth it ever impel me anew, my fervent creative will. Thus impelleth it the hammer to the stone. Ah, ye men, within the stone slumbereth an image for me, the image of my visions. Ah, that it should slumber in the hardest, ugliest stone. Now rageth my hammer ruthlessly against its prison. From the stone flieth the fragments. What's that to me? I will complete it, for a shadow came unto me. The stillest and lightest of all things once came unto me. The beauty of the Superman came unto me as a shadow. Ah, my brethren, of what account now are the gods to me? Thus spake Zarathustra. 25. The Pitiful. My friends, there hath arisen a satire on your friend. Behold, Zarathustra, walketh he not amongst us, as if amongst animals? But it is better said in this wise, the discerning one walketh amongst men as amongst animals. Man himself is to the discerning one, the animal with red cheeks. How hath that happened unto him? Is it not because he hath had to be ashamed too often? O my friends, thus speaketh the discerning one. Shame, shame, shame. That is the history of man. And on that account doth the noble one enjoin on himself not to abash. Bashfulness doth he enjoin himself in presence of all sufferers. Verily, I like them not, the merciful ones, whose bliss is in their pity. Too destitute are they of bashfulness. If I must be pitiful, I dislike to be called so, and if I be so, it is preferably at a distance. Preferably also do I shroud my head and flee before being recognized, and thus do I bid you do, my friends. May my destiny ever lead unafflicted ones like you across my path, and those with whom I may have hope and repast and honey in common. Verily, I have done this and that for the afflicted, but something better did I always seem to do when I had learned to enjoy myself better. Since humanity came into being, man hath enjoyed himself too little. That alone, my brethren, is our original sin. And when we learn better to enjoy ourselves, then do we unlearn best to give pain unto others, and to contrive pain. Therefore do I wash the hand that hath helped the sufferer. Therefore do I wipe also my soul. For in seeing the sufferer suffering, thereof was I ashamed on account of his shame, and in helping him, sorely did I wound his pride. Great obligations do not make grateful, but revengeful. And when a small kindness is not forgotten, it becometh a gnawing worm. Be shy in accepting, distinguish by accepting. Thus do I advise those who have naught to bestow. I, however, am a bestower. Willingly do I bestow as friend to friends. Strangers, however, and the poor, may pluck for themselves the fruit from my tree. Thus doth it cause less shame. Beggars, however, one should entirely do away with. Verily, it annoyeth one to give unto them, and it annoyeth one not to give unto them. And likewise sinners and bad consciences. Believe me, my friends, the sting of conscience teacheth one to sting. The worst things, however, are the petty thoughts. Verily, better to have done evilly than to have thought pettily. To be sure, ye say, the delight in petty evils spareth one many a great evil deed. But here one should not wish to be sparing. Like a boil is the evil deed. It itcheth, and irritateth, and breaketh forth. It speaketh honorably. Behold, I am disease, saith the evil deed. That is its honorableness. But like infection is the petty thought. It creepeth and hideth, and wanteth to be nowhere, until the whole body is decayed and withered by the petty infection. To him, however, who is possessed of a devil, I would whisper this word in the ear. Better for thee to rear up thy devil. Even for thee there is still a path to greatness. Ah, my brethren, one knoweth a little too much about everyone, and many a one becometh transparent to us, but still we can by no means penetrate him. It is difficult to live among men because silence is so difficult, and not to him who is offensive to us are we most unfair, but to him who doth not concern us at all. If, however, thou hast a suffering friend, then be a resting place for his suffering, like a hard bed, however, a camp bed. Thus wilt thou serve him best. And if a friend doeth thee wrong, then say, I forgive thee what thou hast done unto me. That thou hast done it unto thyself, however, how could I forgive that? Thus speaketh all great love. It surpasseth even forgiveness and pity. One should hold fast one's heart, for when one letteth it go, how quickly doth one's head run away. Ah, where in the world have there been greater follies than with the pitiful? And what in the world hath caused more suffering than the follies of the pitiful? Woe unto all loving ones who have not an elevation which is above their pity. Thus spake the devil unto me once a time. Even God hath his hell. It is his love for man. And lately did I hear him say these words: God is dead. Of his pity for man hath God died. So be ye warned against pity. From thence there yet cometh unto men a heavy cloud. Verily, I understand weather signs. But attend also to this word: all great love is above all its pity, for it seeketh to create what is love. Myself do I offer unto my love, and my neighbor as myself. Such is the language of all creators. All creators, however, are hard. Thus spake Zarathustra. 26. The priests. And one day Zarathustra made a sign to his disciples, and spake these words unto them: Here are priests, but although they are mine enemies, pass them quietly and with sleeping swords. Even among them there are heroes. Many of them have suffered too much, so they want to make others suffer. Bad enemies are they. Nothing is more revengeful than their meekness, and readily doth he soil himself who toucheth them. But my blood is related to theirs, and I want withal to see my blood honored in theirs. And when they had passed, a pain attacked Zarathustra, but not long had he struggled with the pain, when he began to speak thus: It moveth my heart for those priests. They also go against my taste. But that is the smallest matter unto me, since I am among men. But I suffer, and have suffered with them. Prisoners are they unto me, and stigmatized ones. He whom they call Savior put them in fetters of false values and fatuous words. Oh, that some one would save them from their Savior. On an isle they once thought they had landed, when the sea tossed them about. But behold, it was a slumbering monster. False values and fatuous words, these are the worst monsters for mortals. Long slumbereth and waiteth the fate that is in them. But at last it cometh and awaketh, and devoureth and engulfeth whatever hath built tabernacles upon it. Oh, just look at those tabernacles which those priests have built themselves. Churches they call their sweet-smelling caves. Oh, that falsified light, that mustified air, where the soul may not fly aloft to its height, but so enjoineth their belief. On your knees, up the stair, ye sinners. Verily, rather would I see a shameless one than the distorted eyes of their shame and devotion. Who created for themselves such caves and penitence stairs? Was it not those who sought to conceal themselves and were ashamed under the clear sky? And only when the clear sky looketh again through ruined roofs, and down upon grass and red poppies on ruined walls, will I again turn my heart to the seats of this God. They called God that which opposed and afflicted them, and verily there was much hero spirit in their worship, and they knew not how to look their God otherwise than by nailing men to the cross. As corpses they thought to live. In black draped they their corpses. Even in their talk do I still feel the evil flavor of carnal houses. And he who liveth nigh unto them liveth nigh unto black pools, wherein the toad singeth his song with sweet gravity. Better songs would they have to sing for me to believe in their Savior. More like saved ones would his disciples have to appear unto me. Naked would I like to see them, for beauty alone should preach penitence. But whom would that disguised affliction convince? Verily, their saviors themselves came not from freedom and freedom's seventh heaven. Verily, they themselves never trod the carpets of knowledge. Of defects did the spirit of those saviors consist, but into every defect had they put their illusion, their stopgap, which they called God. In their pity was their spirit drowned, and when they swelled and o'erswelled with pity, there always floated to the surface a great folly. Eagerly and with shouts drove they their flock over their footbridge, as if there were but one footbridge to the future. Verily, those shepherds also were still of the flock. Small spirits and spacious souls had those shepherds. But my brethren, what small domains have even the most spacious souls hitherto been? Characters of blood did they write on the way they went, and their folly taught that truth is proved by blood. But blood is the very worst witness to truth. Blood tainteth the purest teaching, and turneth it into delusion and hatred of heart. And when a person goeth through fire for his teaching, what doth that prove? It is more, verily, when out of one's own burning cometh one's own teaching. Sultry heart and cold head, where these meet, there ariseth the blusterer, the Saviour. Great ones, verily, have there been, and higher born ones, than those whom the people call saviors, those rapturous blusterers. And by still greater ones than any of the saviors must ye be saved, my brethren, if ye would find the way to freedom. Never yet hath there been a Superman. Naked have I seen both of them, the greatest man and the smallest man. All too similar are they still to each other. Verily, even the greatest found I all too human. Thus spake Zarathustra. 27. The Virtuous. With thunder and heavenly fireworks must one speak to indolent and somnolent senses. But beauty's voice speaketh gently. It appealeth only to the most awakened souls. Gently vibrated and laughed unto me today my buckler. It was beauty's holy laughing and thrilling. At you, ye virtuous ones, laughed my beauty today. And thus came its voice unto me. They want to be paid besides. Ye want to be paid besides, ye virtuous ones. Ye want reward for virtue, and heaven for earth, and eternity for your today. And now ye upbraid me for teaching that there is no reward giver, nor paymaster. And verily, I do not even teach that virtue is its own reward. Ah, this is my sorrow. Into the basis of things have reward and punishment been insinuated. And now, even into the basis of your souls, ye virtuous ones. But like the snout of the boar, shall my word grub up the basis of your souls. A plowshare will I be called by you. All the secrets of your heart shall be brought to light. And when ye lie in the sun, grubbed up and broken, then will also your falsehood be separated from your truth. For this is your truth. Ye are too pure for the filth of the words. Vengeance, punishment, recompense, retribution. Ye love your virtue as a mother loveth her child. But when did one hear of a mother wanting to be paid for her love? It is your dearest self, your virtue. The ring's thirst is in you. To reach itself again struggleth every ring, and turneth itself. And like the star that goeth out, so is every work of your virtue. Ever is its light on its way and traveling, and when will it cease to be on its way? Thus is the light of your virtue still on its way, even when its work is done. Be it forgotten and dead, still its ray of light liveth and travelleth. That your virtue is yourself, and not an outward thing, a skin or a cloak. That is the truth from the basis of your souls, ye virtuous ones. But sure enough, there are those to whom virtue meaneth writhing under the lash, and ye have hearkened too much unto their crying. And others are there who call virtue the slothfulness of their vices. And when once their hatred and jealousy relax the limbs, their justice becometh lively and rubbeth its sleepy eyes. And others are there who are drawn downwards, their devils draw them. But the more they sink, the more ardently gloweth their eye, and the longing for their God. Ah, their crying also hath reached your ears, ye virtuous ones. What I am not, that is God to me, and virtue. And others are there who go along heavily and creakingly, like carts taking stones downhill. They talk much of dignity and virtue. Their drag they call virtue. And others are there who are like 8-day clocks. When wound up, they tick and want people to call ticking virtue. Verily, in those have I mine amusement. Wherever I find such clocks, I shall wind them up with my mockery, and they shall even whir thereby. And others are proud of their modicum of righteousness, and, for the sake of it, do violence to all things, so that the world is drowned in their unrighteousness. Ah, how inevitably cometh the word virtue out of their mouth. And when they say, I am just, it always soundeth like, I am just revenged. With their virtues, they want to scratch out the eyes of their enemies, and they elevate themselves only that they may lower others. And again, there are those who sit in their swamp and speak thus from among the bulrushes. Virtue, that is to sit quietly in the swamp. We bite no one, and go out of the way of him who would bite. And in all matters, we have the opinion that is given us. And again, there are those who love attitudes, and think that virtue is a sort of attitude. Their knees continually adore, and their hands are eulogies of virtue, but their heart knoweth naught thereof. And again, there are those who regard it as virtue to say, virtue is necessary, but after all, they believe only that policemen are necessary. And many a one who cannot see men's loftiness calleth it virtue to see their baseness far too well. Thus calleth he his evil eye virtue. And some want to be edified and raised up, and call it virtue. And others want to be cast down, and likewise call it virtue. And thus do almost all think that they participate in virtue, and at least everyone claimeth to be an authority on good and evil. But Zarathustra came not to say unto all those liars and fools, What do ye know of virtue? What could ye know of virtue? But that ye, my friends, might become weary of the old words which ye have learned from the fools and liars. That ye might become weary of the words reward, retribution, punishment, righteous vengeance. That ye might become weary of saying that an action is good is because it is unselfish. Ah, my friends, that your very self be in your action, as the mother is in the child. Let that be your formula of virtue. Verily, I have taken from you 100 formulae, and your virtue's favorite playthings, and now ye upbraid me as children upbraid. They played by the sea, then came there a wave and swept their playthings into the deep. And now do they cry. But the same wave shall bring them new playthings, and spread before them new speckled shells. Thus will they be comforted, and like them shall ye also, my friends, have your comforting in new speckled shells. Thus spake Zarathustra. 28. The Rabble. Life is a well of delight, but where the rabble also drink, there all fountains are poisoned. To everything cleanly I am well disposed, but I hate to see the grinning mouths and the thirst of the unclean. They cast their eye down into the fountain, and now glanceth up to meet their odious smile out of the fountain. The holy water have they poisoned with their lustfulness, and when they called their filthy dreams delight, then poisoned they also the words. Indignant becometh the flame when they put their damp hearts to the fire. The spirit itself smoketh when the rabble approach the fire. Mawkish and over-mellow become the fruit in their hands, unsteady and withered at the top doth their loathing make the fruit tree. And many a one who hath turned away from life hath only turned away from the rabble. He hated to share with them fountain, flame, and fruit. And many a one who hath gone into the wilderness and suffered thirst with beasts of prey disliked only to sit at the cistern with filthy camel drivers. And many a one who hath come along as a destroyer and as a hailstone to all cornfields, wanted merely to put his foot into the jaws of the rabble and thus stop their throat. And it is not the mouthful which hath most choked me, to know that life itself requireth enmity, and death and torture crosses. But I asked once, and suffocated almost with my question, what? Is the rabble also necessary for life? Are poisoned fountains necessary, and stinking fires, and filthy dreams, and maggots in the bread of life? Not my hatred, but my loathing, gnawed hungrily at my life. Ah, oft times became I weary of spirit, when I found even the rabble spiritual. And on their rulers turned I my back, when I saw what they now call ruling, to traffic and bargain for power with the rabble. Amongst peoples of a strange language did I dwell, with stopped ears, so that the language of their trafficking might remain strange unto me, and their bargaining for power. And holding my nose, I went morosely through all yesterdays and todays. Verily, badly smell all yesterdays and todays of the scribbling rabble. Like a cripple became deaf and blind and dumb, thus have I lived long, that I might not live with the power rabble, the scribe rabble, and the pleasure rabble. Toilsomely did my spirit mount stairs, and cautiously alms of delight for its refreshment. On the staff did life creep along with the blind one. What hath happened unto me? How have I freed myself from loathing? Who hath rejuvenated mine eye? How have I flown to the height where no rabble any longer sit at the wells? Did my loathing itself create for me wings and fountain dividing powers? Verily, to the loftiest height had I to fly, to find again the well of delight. Oh, I have found it, my brethren. Here on the loftiest height bubbleth up for me the well of delight, and there is a life at whose waters none of the rabble drink with me. Almost too violently dost thou flow for me, thou fountain of delight, and often emptiest thou the goblet again in wanting to fill it. And yet must I learn to approach thee more modestly. Far too violently doth my heart still flow towards thee, my heart on which my summer burneth, my short, hot, melancholy, over-happy summer. How my summer heart longeth for thy coolness. Past the lingering distress of my spring, past the wickedness of my snowflakes in June, summer have I become entirely, and summer noontide. A summer on the loftiest height, with cold fountains and blissful stillness. Oh, come, my friends, that the stillness may become more blissful. For this is our height and our home. Too high and steep do we here dwell for all uncleanly ones and their thirst. Cast but your pure eyes into the well of my delight, my friends. How can it become turbid thereby? It shall laugh back to you with its purity. On the trees of the future build we our nest. Eagles shall bring us lone ones food in their beaks. Verily, no food of which the impure could be fellow partakers. Fire would they think they devoured, and burn their mouths. Verily, no abodes do we here keep pure. A nice cave to their bodies would our happiness be, and to their spirits. And as strong winds will we live above them, neighbors to the eagles, neighbors to the snow, neighbors to the sun, Thus live the strong winds. And like a wind will I one day blow amongst them, and with my spirit take the breath from their spirit. Thus willeth my future. Verily, a strong wind is Zarathustra to all low places. And this counsel counseleth he to his enemies, and to whatever spitteth and speweth. Take care not to spit against the wind. Thus spake Zarathustra. 29. The Tarantulas. Lo, this is the tarantula's den. Wouldst thou see the tarantula itself? Here hangeth its web. Touch this, so that it may tremble. There cometh the tarantula willingly. Welcome, tarantula. Black on thy back is thy triangle and symbol, and I know also what is in thy soul. Revenge is in thy soul. Wherever thou bitest, there ariseth black scab. With revenge, thy poison maketh the soul giddy. Thus do I speak unto you in parable, ye who make the soul giddy, ye preachers of equality. Tarantulas are ye unto me, and secretly revengeful ones, but I will soon bring your hiding places to the light. Therefore do I laugh in your face, my laughter of the height. Therefore do I tear your web, that your rage may lure you out of your den of lies, and that your revenge may leap forth from behind your word justice. Because for man to be redeemed from revenge, that is for me the bridge to the highest hope, and a rainbow after long storms. Otherwise, however, would the tarantulas have it. Let it be very justice for the world to become full of the storms of our vengeance. Thus do they talk to one another. Vengeance will we use and insult against all who are not like us. Thus do the tarantula hearts pledge themselves, and will to equality. That itself shall henceforth be the name of virtue, and against all that hath power will we raise an outcry. Ye preachers of equality, the tyrant frenzy of impotence crieth thus in you for equality. Your most secret tyrant longings disguise themselves thus in virtue words, worded conceit, and suppressed envy. Perhaps your father's conceit and envy in you break they forth as flame and frenzy of vengeance. What the Father hath hid cometh out in the Son, and oft have I found in the Son the Father's revealed secret. Inspired ones they resemble, but it is not the heart that inspireth them, but vengeance. And when they become subtle and cold, it is not spirit, but envy that maketh them so. Their jealousy leadeth them also into thinkers' paths, and this is the sign of their jealousy. They always go too far, so that their fatigue hath at last to go to sleep on the snow. In all their lamentations soundeth vengeance, in all their eulogies is maleficence, and being judge seemeth to them bliss. But thus do I counsel you, my friends, distrust all in whom the impulse to punish is powerful. They are people of bad race and lineage. Out of their countenances peer the hangman and the sleuth out. Distrust all those who talk much of their justice. Verily, in their souls not only honey is lacking, and when they call themselves the good and just, forget not that for them to be Pharisees, nothing is lacking but power. My friends, I will not be mixed up and confounded with others. There are those who preach my doctrine of life, and are at the same time preachers of equality, and tarantulas, that they speak in favor of life, though they sit in their den, these poison spiders, and withdrawn from life, is because they would thereby do injury. To those would they thereby do injury who have power at present, or with those the preaching of death is still most at home. Were it otherwise, then would the tarantulas teach otherwise, and they themselves were formerly the best world maligners and heretic burners. With these preachers of equality will I not be mixed up and confounded, for thus speaketh justice unto me. Men are not equal, and neither shall they become so. What would be my love to the Superman if I spake otherwise? On 1,000 bridges and piers shall they throng to the future, and always shall there be more war and inequality among them. Thus doth my great love make me speak. Inventors of figures and phantoms shall they be in their hostilities, and with those figures and phantoms shall they yet fight with each other the supreme fight. Good and evil, and rich and poor, and high and low, and all names of values, weapons shall they be, and sounding signs that life must again and again surpass itself. Aloft will it build itself with columns and stairs. Life itself into remote distances would it gaze, down towards blissful beauties. Therefore doth it require elevation. And because it requireth elevation, therefore doth it require steps, and variance of steps and climbers. To rise striveth life, and in rising to surpass itself. And just behold, my friends, here where the tarantula's den is, lies a aloft an ancient temple's ruins. Just behold, eyes.
Good puppies. Come on, you want to say?
Knew as well as the wisest ones about the secret of life, that there is struggle and inequality even in beauty, and war for power and supremacy. That doth he here teach us in the plainest parable. How divinely do fault and arch here contrast with the struggle, how with light and shade they strive against each other, the divinely striving ones. Thus steadfast and beautiful, let us also be enemies, my friends. Divinely will we strive against one another. Alas, there hath the tarantula bit me myself, mine old enemy. Divinely steadfast and beautiful, it hath bit me on the finger. Punishment must there be, and justice. So thinketh it. Not gratuitously shall he here sing songs in honor of enmity. Yea, it hath revenged itself, and alas, now will it make my soul also dizzy with revenge. That I may not turn dizzy, however, bind me fast, my friends, to this pillar. Rather will I be a pillar saint than a whirl of vengeance. Verily, no cyclone or whirlwind is Zarathustra. And if he be a dancer, he is not at all a tarantula dancer. Thus spake Zarathustra. 30. The famous wise ones. The people have ye served, and the people's superstition, not the truth, all ye famous wise ones. And just on that account did they pay you reverence. And on that account also did they tolerate your unbelief, because it was a pleasantry and a bypath for the people. Thus doth the master give free scope to his slaves, and even enjoyeth their presumptuousness. But he who is hated by the people, as the wolf by the dogs, is the free spirit, the enemy of fetters, the non-adorer, the dweller in the woods. To hunt him out of his lair, that was always called sense of right by the people. On him do they still hound the sharpest toothed dogs. There the truth is, where the people are. Woe, woe to the seeking ones. Thus hath it echoed through all time. Your people will be justified in their reverence that call ye will to truth, ye famous wise ones. And your heart hath always said to itself, from the people have I come. From thence came to me also the voice of God. Stiff-necked and artful, like the ass, have ye always been, as the advocates of the people. And many a powerful one, who wanted to run well with the people, hath harnessed in front of his horses a donkey, a famous wise man. And now, ye famous wise ones, I would have you finally throw off entirely the skin of the lion, the skin of the beast of prey, the speckled skin, and the disheveled locks of the investigator, the searcher, and the conqueror. Ah, for me to learn to believe in your conscientiousness, ye would first have to break your venerating will. Conscientious, so call I him who goeth into God-forsaken wildernesses, and hath broken his venerating heart. In the yellow sands and burnt by the sun, he doubtless peereth thirstily at the isles rich in fountains, where life reposeth under shady trees. But his thirst doth not persuade him to become like those comfortable ones, for where there are oases, there are also idols. Hungry, fierce, lonesome, God-forsaken, so doth the lion wish itself. From the happiness of slaves, redeemed from deities and aberrations, fearless and fear-inspiring, grand and lonesome, so is the will of the conscientious. In the wilderness have ever dwelt the conscientious, the free spirits, as lords of the wilderness, but in the cities dwell the well-foddered, famous wise ones, the draught beasts. For always do they draw, as asses, the people's carts. Not that I on that account upbraid them, but serving ones do they remain, and harnessed ones, even though they glitter in golden harness. And often have they been good servants and worthy of their hire. For thus saith virtue, if thou must be a servant, seek him unto whom thy service is most useful. The spirit and virtue of thy master shall advance by thou being his servant. Thus wilt thou thyself advance with his spirit and virtue. And verily, ye famous wise ones, ye servants of the people, ye yourselves have advanced with the people's spirit and virtue, and the people by you. To your honor do I say it. But the people ye remain for me, even with your virtues, the people with purblind eyes, the people who know not what spirit is. Spirit is life itself, which cutteth into life. By its own torture doth it increase its own knowledge. Did ye know that before? And the Spirit's happiness is this, to be anointed and consecrated with tears as a sacrificial victim. Did ye know that before? And the blindness of the blind one, and his seeking and groping, shall yet testify to the power of the sun into which he hath gazed. Did ye know that before? And with mountains shall the discerning one learn to build. It is a small thing for the Spirit to remove mountains. Did ye know that before? Ye know only the sparks of the Spirit, but ye do not see the anvil which it is, and the cruelty of its hammer. Verily, ye know not the Spirit's pride, but still less could ye endure the Spirit's humility, however should it ever want to speak. And never yet could ye cast your spirit into a pit of snow. Ye are not hot enough for that. Thus are ye unaware also of the delight of its coldness. In all respects, however, ye make too familiar with the Spirit, and out of wisdom have ye often made an almshouse and a hospital for bad poets. Ye are not eagles, thus have ye never experienced the happiness of the alarm of the Spirit. And he who is not a bird should not camp above abysses. Ye seem to me lukewarm ones, but coldly floweth all deep knowledge. Ice cold are the innermost wells of the Spirit, a refreshment to hot hands and handlers. Respectable do ye there stand, and stiff, and with straight backs, ye famous wise ones. No strong wind or will impelleth you. Have ye never seen a sail crossing the sea, rounded and inflated and trembling with the violence of the wind? Like the sail trembling with the violence of the Spirit, doth my wisdom cross the sea, my wild wisdom. But ye servants of the people, ye famous wise ones, how could ye go with me? Thus spake Zarathustra. 31. The Night Song. 'Tis night, now do all gushing fountains speak louder, and my soul also is a gushing fountain. 'Tis night, now only do all songs of the loving ones awake, and my soul is also the song of a loving one. Something unappeased, unappeasable is within me. It longeth to find expression, A craving for love is within me, which speaketh itself the language of love. Light am I. Ah, that I were night, but it is my lonesomeness to be begirt with light. Ah, that I were dark and nightly, how would I suck at the breasts of light, and you yourselves would I bless, ye twinkling starlets and glowworms aloft, and would rejoice in the gifts of your light. But I live in mine own light. I drink again into myself the flames that break forth from me. I know not the happiness of the receiver, and oft have I dreamt that stealing must be more blessed than receiving. It is my poverty that my hand never ceaseth bestowing. It is mine envy that I see waiting eyes and the brightened nights of longing. Oh, the misery of all bestowers! Oh, the darkening of my sun! Oh, the craving to crave! Oh, the violent hunger, insatiety! They take from me, but do I yet touch their soul? There is a gap twixt giving and receiving, and the smallest gap hath finally to be bridged over. A hunger ariseth out of my beauty. I should like to injure those idle. I should like to rob those I have given. Thus do I hunger for wickedness. My other hand already stretches out to it, imitating it like the cascade, which hesitated even inside. Thus do I hunger for wickedness. Such revenge doth mine abundance think of such mischief dwelleth out of my lonesomeness. My happiness, bestowing, died in bestowing. My virtue became weary of itself by its abundance. He who ever bestoweth is in danger of losing his shame. To him who ever dispenseth, the hand and heart become callous by very dispensing. Mine eye no longer overfloweth with the shame of suppliance. My hand hath become too hard for the trembling of fill hands. Once have gone the tears of mine eyes, and the down of my heart. Oh, the lonesomeness of all these stars. Oh, the silence of all shining ones. Many suns circle the desert space. To all that is dark do they speak their light. But to me, they are silent. Oh, this is the dust of light to the
So
shadow.
did they not pee?
Unpitying